My name's Antony Micallef. I'm an artist from London. I think the main thing is to be really excited about what you're doing, and that when you're really excited about something, you have that passion for it, and that's when you naturally come up with ideas of how to approach it, with what medium, and it's generally when you really feel engaged with the piece. Sometimes when you have those great ideas in your head, it's a really exciting moment. And when I have those ideas, like if I keep it in my head for 3 months and it's still a great idea, you know, like you can do something with it. But it's so nice when those things just fall into your head and you get that inspiration. And it comes from so many different places. Like you could see a poster on the wall, or there be a scene in a movie, or you could see lots of various different things, and it just triggers something. Or like sort of painting behind me, like there's the London School, there's Frank Halbach, Francis Bacon, and there's a couple of others in, like, but basically it's that, for me, that the abstraction of the figure in a sense. So all these things come from complete different opposites, and it's like putting them in a big pot and you stir it round, and comes out in your own filter in a way. I love it when it comes from really unexpected places. It's like the bits of the world is like, you know, going, look at this, and it's really nice to discover those things. It keeps it interesting. Like working in different ways, it's never something I intend to do because it makes your life so difficult. So, but I really enjoy testing how far materials can go. I mean, I'm an oil painter, and I say I always paint, but I love taking oil to its limit. I love stretching the possibility of, you know, like oil is a very traditional material, and I love that inherent kind of the story of art in a sense, you know, because oils have always been around. So, and I love doing new things with it. So basically, when you change your style, I always try and bring oil with me in some way. But the thing is, it just feels like there are more tools in your toolbox, and you know, throughout time, you kind of go on this journey accidentally, because all these things are accidents, and then you think, oh, I could use this. But it's nice to shift around and change around, because I get restless, and so it's, you know, you never want to eat the same meal twice. You don't want to wear the same clothes every day. You don't want to go to the same, you know, holiday for, you know, destination, and try new things out. And I really enjoy that about the creativity of it. It keeps it fresh. It's so nice to go from different styles to styles, and then you surprise yourself. Whenever you start a new piece, it's so funny being in front of a blank canvas because it's all serene. It's actually beautiful white as it is. And it feels like you're going to go on this long journey, like you've just got in the car, you've got this big journey to go through. I mean, it's really exciting. The thing is, when you start making the work, like you build up, it's all about having a conversation with the piece. And eventually, if it does work, or if it begins to work, it starts telling you what it wants. But you go for these ups and downs, and some of it is fantastic, and some of it is soul-destroying. And yeah, it's like a real roller coaster in a sense. And then eventually, if you manage to feel the piece and you're happy with it, it's a great feeling. But generally, it feels like you've gone through this whole relationship with this piece. And some pieces can take years. Some people take months, or they could be finished quicker. And sometimes you have to sit with it, you know. But I find it fascinating that type of relationship you feel you've built up with this object. But it's only over time it becomes a piece of art to your head, or it does something. So it has to do something emotionally, I feel, in order for it to be worth anything. I think as a figurative painter, you can range from being like photoreal to really heavily abstracted, but I mean, generally it's always about the figure. And I find with my work, the reason why it's so distorted, I'm always interested in like how far can you take something before it disintegrates. So I find it like with emotions, like we will go through various emotions. Like I always see it as like something or this thing is in a lab, in a sense, and like you're stretching it before, you know, how far can I project this emotion, in a sense. And I'm interested in sort of that kind of emotional value or that kind of feeling within these figures, you know. I think art should have an emotional value. I think art should do something which connects with us as human beings. So hopefully what you're making counts towards something, right? Hopefully. I like the idea of making art because I think it's, without trying to sound too pretentious, but I think it's probably the closest thing we have to magic, in a sense. Like we have these objects, you know, I can leave the room, but if you come into the room and you feel something by looking at this object on a wall or, you know, in the middle of the floor, then that's doing something, and I think that counts. So basically, yeah, I just think, I don't know, I hope my work has an emotional value of some sort, I guess. Whenever I make a piece of art, or whenever I make a painting, I always want that painting to have a real presence. I want the piece I make, or the painting I make, I want it to feel like a person is in the room, or like something's hanging on that wall which you can't ignore, in a sense. I just want it to have that human presence, and having the thickness of the paint. Like sometimes it's like 2.5 inches thick. It's very thick paint, but I think it adds that mass to the piece. Yeah, I think it's all about having presence, because otherwise it just feels like decoration, you know. So, and I think that's, yeah, I'm attracted to that in a painting. So when I start making the paintings for the Raw Intent series, I was using litres of oil paint, and then using huge brushes, and then I was loading the brushes with oil paint. So when I'm painting the figure, I'm looking in the mirror. Sometimes a painting goes through different stages where it's not going the way you want it to, or it doesn't have a certain emotional feeling you want it to. You can hit, whenever I go through these heads or these bodies, sometimes you go through 20 different versions, and some of them like are doing something. It has to do something. Every mark has to be economical. Everything has to work in a certain way. And sometimes it can capture something, but I'm like, it's not really what I want. And so you have to make a decision to kind of, you don't ever really scrub it out, but you make a new mark. And if you make a new mark, the whole of the painting then changes. So you're constantly taking risks. Well, how far can I take this? And like if you chuck it, you know, sometimes I stand meters away and you throw paint at it. And like, which has happened with this piece here, it's got this thing going through its head. And it landed exactly, it did something to the painting, it landed exactly in the right place. And sometimes that goes wrong, you destroy the whole thing. So it's a real gamble, and you're taking risks with it all the time. And I always feel like a train is coming towards like this kind of, where it has to stop. But like, and it's like you could take a painting up to 70% or 80%. The fun is when it starts getting to like 90%, it's working. 95% is amazing, but you're trying to get it to 97, 98, that's when like the real gems happen. And if you can reach that point, that's the best feeling in the world. Those paintings come out once every 3 years maybe, you know. But you're trying to take it as far as it can go before you end up destroying it. And when it works, it's a great feeling, if it works. I've always been quite messy as a kid growing up. I'm quite chaotic. Even when I'm tidying up things around the house, I'll pick something up, walk over, put it down, and everything takes me hours. But I think in my studio, the reason why it's messy, it's not intended to be messy. I wish it could be tidier, but the thing is, when I'm painting, I'm going through so many of these brushes. I have like papers you're using to scrub things off, and like you have so many tools. So when I'm working, I need things around me, so you're picking things up and you're moving it and you're scraping things off, and I'm chucking it down because I don't have time to see where it goes, and I don't care where it goes. All I care about is what's happening right in front of me. And if I tidy up after that session, I start another painting and the place is going to look the same. So I tidy up only when I finish a series or a body of work. And it's funny, but I know where things are. There's like zones where I know roughly where things are. I don't intend it to be as chaotic, but it kind of, living in having a studio like that, it's a bit like getting a hug from yourself, and it's full of like this history, because I write my ideas on walls, or you think about things. It's funny because sometimes you can come in and then you can read this stuff and you're like, what was I thinking? But yeah, you get quite attached to your space. It's like this, and because it is so full of paint, it's like this it's like living in a painting, really. I remember painting Peacekeeper and Friendly Fire. Friendly Fire was one of those ideas you have where you get really excited. It's like a frame falls into your head, and then you just see it really clearly. I remember, obviously, the Iraq War was on at the time, but I had this idea of, I found angels really interesting as as a symbol, but also like the idea of an angel coming down to do its job and pick someone up and taking them to heaven, but also getting shot, in the middle of all this chaos. I thought that's what that particular piece was about, and also something that we hold dear, like we mess up too, I thought it'd be interesting if an angel got caught up in friendly fire. I just thought that was the idea of that particular piece. If you're making political work, or a type of political work, I think it's really important if you can talk about empathy from both sides and not just talk about their bad or this person's bad, or because every side thinks they're right, and every side, has their reasons for doing certain things. But I find it interesting if you can somehow talk about the situation. And Peacekeeper was about that as well. The idea that I thought was interesting, you have UN troops, you have supposedly peacekeeper troops, obviously, have weapons and they're trying to do a job. But I found it really interesting, mixing the imagery of, say, using that sort of cliched sort of 70s, that sort of flower power element, or like that idea, or if you could have peacekeeper troops, put flowers all over them, but walking around with, machine guns. There's a kind of an oxymoron going on there, or hypocrisy or something like that. And I love the idea of fusing language like that. I find it really interesting, and I think that Peacekeeper was about, about that. So. You grow up and you mature, like your art comes with you, it's so part of you. It's not like a separate thing. So, it's funny because sometimes I've made work in the past and it's like looking at your 16-year-old self and like this art's going, I think this, and you just think, oh God. Like it's strange, that whole thing. And you have other pieces of art which you still really love, and it does its job. And it's really funny, that whole thing. Yeah, you just grow up together with it. I mean, it's so attached to you. I mean, like making art is, it's funny because sometimes you find bits of art from when you were a child, and that's really strange. But it's all about, hopefully, it's all about development, right? And because you're always learning the whole time, and you never stop. That's the fun bit. And that's why I like trying out all these different ways of trying to create my ideas, for using these different styles.